A bit earlier, in a small region in southern India, a style called wooden casing art was preserved. What is wooden casing art? When it came to China and spread, it was known as Wu Dai Dang Feng and Chao Yi Chu Shui. It is exactly Chao Yi Chu Shui, which is like what you see in the West with wedding dresses that are tightly fitted. Tightly fitted, with strips wrapped closely around the body. This is what wooden casing art is. In fact, nowadays, many fashion designs follow this style, especially modern fashion houses like Coutts, Christian Dior, and so on. Risage and others in the later generations borrowed from ancient Iranian art, including its, I'll show you my guanyin later, including its patterns. I borrowed a lot. Let's not talk about that for now. I myself have also borrowed a lot, and then it gradually developed into what is called Gandhara art. At that time, the creation of statues was becoming increasingly popular because the great tree of the Yuezhi king, Sun Yang, had already achieved great success and Buddhism was flourishing, so many statues were made along the way, becoming more and more prevalent. So what is Gandhara? It is a path toward a pure, devotional way. That is, the body is divided into 3 segments in a bent waist posture. According to tradition, human nature descends in just 3 steps. The first is the material body. Originally, Bodhi is without number, descending from the highest wisdom body. This is called the sattva nature, your inherent nature. This is the bodhisattva. But as you keep stirring your thoughts, your emotional life expands. As your emotional life expands, you may not be able to ascend, so you return to the bodhisattva path. If you have no chance to return upward, you just keep rising and falling, and eventually become a material body. When you are in the material body, you fall. But if one day you can reach a certain place, you can turn your mind and body around. If you suddenly wake up, you can go back up. Otherwise, you will be attached to that material body and continue to fall. With a body, there is no soul, and you will suffer from thirst. Slowly, even the body will decay, and without a body and soul, only a wandering soul will remain. What is a wandering soul? A wild ghost? Yes, that's right. That's bad. So we say that you must practice cultivation in your heart, and it will definitely not be superficial. Slowly develop. When you come back in the early stage, you will see that the development has changed. Because our Middle Earth style is more elegant and luxurious, it is much more elegant and luxurious, but it is all a pure expression of Buddhism and the dignity behind bodhisattvas and Buddhas. There is another benefit at that time, because you can let those elephants see your solemn and respectful heart for Buddhism, which will gradually deteriorate. You see the later offerings of Zhang Yichao in the Dunhuang grottos. The patron saint of Chao Jinyi, the patron saint who achieved Wu Lei Gong. Then the giant Buddha was even smaller than him. He used the giant Buddha, but in the earliest Yijin and northern and southern dynasties, the nails underneath were so small, like incense burners. The patron saint's nails were so small that you could barely see them with the spectacles. This is a reflection of the past life of Buddhism. At that time, there were many merchants along the Silk Road, which passed through the Tian Shan and Kowloon mountains. There was a large hexi corridor on either side. It's not what I mentioned, but the film crew mentioned the hexi corridor on either side. This corridor was slowly created. The entire desert was devoid of life, except for some wild grass and some wild animals nearby. It took a lot of time and water to walk. I remember going to Dunhuang in the 1980s. I wrote for several days, but no one responded. I asked if I had a car, because back then you had to charter a car and you had to have enough talent. As they slowly went, they set up tents and made offerings. In early days, they were humble, having no money and facing life and death. Gradually, as they found silver and the Silk Road opened, becoming prosperous during the Tang dynasty, even Xuanzang almost didn't want to leave. According to the great Tang records on the western regions, when Xuanzang arrived at Xiaoxitian one day, he was amazed by its prosperity. Some even suggested not leaving, and he was tempted. So he stayed there for 2 years. He stayed not because he was seeking Dharma and couldn't fulfill his mission, but in the end, he still had to go. It turned out that it wasn't until he left for India that he realized there was still a long way to go, even farther than Leigong. It took a long time to reach Jiaojun, and there were many people there. Gradually, as people became wealthier, they started asking artists, "Paint me a statue as big as Leigong. I am the Buddha. I am the Bodhisattva." It became superficial. in painting these images, what is most important? In the early days, artists had to survive. Just to make a living there, they had no choice. But with their sincere devotion, the images they painted all represented the Dharma, embodying the compassion and dignity of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and expressing their reverence. This was the very first step on the path. But gradually, as I mentioned earlier, as their achievements grew and their ambitions swelled, the images became larger and larger. At that time, what were these images based on, and what forms did they take? According to Buddhist scriptures, there are 32 major marks and 80 minor characteristics. Each enlightened being or extraordinary person possesses 32 physical features. For example, large earlobes, long arms, a flat and firm neck, sitting motionless, neatly arranged hair, long eyebrows that extend past the eyes, eyes that gaze straight ahead, a dignified nose, and so on. Features like these, as well as 80. And what are these 80 minor characteristics? Sitting there without moving your feet, because all of these are. Because of these characteristics, as Tony said, those who pay for the paintings and those who refuse to pay, and those kings say, you have to make it look like me. Then later, the Brahmin priests say, you have to make it look even more like me because I represent the heavens. So many bodhisattvas are depicted based on the appearance of those priests. That's why you see our Guanyin Bodhisattva, Manjushri Bodhisattva, and the 4 great bodhisattvas. Except for Ksitigarbha, because Ksitigarbha needs to be depicted as humble, so only Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is shown with a shaved head. Speaking of Guanyin, his hair must always be styled in a high bun. Why? Because hair represents the magical power of the priests and also symbolizes the power to communicate between the heavens and the earth. This magical power is not arbitrary, it is inherited. The original religion was called Yami. Yama is not about eating those things. Yami or Yama refers to the Lord of Flame. The Lord of Flame is not the same as the king of the underworld, who is of a lower rank. The Lord of Flame governs the primal forces of the universe, the cycle of life and death. This Lord of Flame is in charge of life and death. According to legend, before a person dies, a lock of hair must be cut. Only then will the person pass away. If you don't cut it, they won't die. The Bodhisattva's plan is that the higher the bun, the greater the wisdom and magical power. This is one reason. Once the authority is taken, it is gradually developed. After the Holy Hall, it continued to develop because there was a portion. Artists said that when they painted, images became more humanized because they drew inspiration from those in power. Thus, the original intent behind the Buddha was diminished. The mission of spreading the teachings and the process of Buddhification were both diluted, so only a small number of outstanding artists remained. How should we approach a Buddha, Bodhisattva, or a Buddha, or how should ordinary believers view Buddhist paintings? One condition is, for example, if you are a celestial being, you should sense that celestial being has superhuman feelings, but it can freely control the material world. How does his mind and body rise, but he is still human? He only yearns for pleasure, not wisdom, pure pleasure. Therefore, he can enjoy a long life, even up to 900 years, but he will all die one day. If you paint a bodhisattva, you paint one who is me and I am him. What does it mean that he is me and I am him? When you paint him, not only does he look like a wise man, but he also looks like someone connected to all living beings. He is a wise and intelligent person. He goes in and out of life and death, but he is indifferent to everything in life and death and is not afraid of life and death. For him, life and death are just the process of one life. After the end, he will disappear in the next life and death. Cyclic time is just like this for him. There is no space. Space is here. There is no space. If you paint a bodhisattva, you can only look at him and not get close to him. This is a failure because a bodhisattva is a common living being, a self-aware and aware being. So you look like a human, a living being, a powerful living being, and a wise man. This is a success. As for the Buddha, how do you appreciate him? He has transcended life and death. A wise one who possesses both wisdom and merit, everything, every speck of dust is something subtle to him. What does subtle mean? It means that in essence it is already material energy. Matter should be all-encompassing and manipulable, meaning in itself it is already emptiness. That is, when reaching a certain state with a sudden movement, it comes to play again. This is Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. So how do you paint such wisdomlessness? What is it? What is called no wisdom does not mean the absence of wisdom. It means that knowledge has already reached its limit and ultimate wisdom cannot be expressed in words. It's just like emptiness. It's something vast. This is why, after spending more time with it, you start to feel it. It's like drinking a glass of water. If the water is very hot and you don't drink it, you only know it's hot in theory. But when you actually drink it, you truly feel how hot it is. This sensation cannot be understood through words. So when you try to express it in a painting, how should you convey it? It should look very pure, very innocent, almost as if untouched by the world. The baby slowly but surely developed, growing in significance and eventually entering the annals of history. Following this period and after the established temple traditions, Zen Buddhism began its profound and influential rise. The emergence of Zen Buddhism was largely due to a critical juncture. By the time we reached the later stages of our temple's existence, there was an overwhelming abundance of scriptures, so numerous that they were like dense clouds, making it incredibly difficult to discern their individual meanings or find a clear path through them. Beyond this, there were many other contributing factors to its powerful ascent. There were countless believers, each holding different levels of faith and understanding within Buddhism. If one were to deliver a lecture to such a diverse audience in the afternoon, even using a multitude of words and elaborate explanations, it was highly probable that many might not grasp the profound essence of the teachings as thoroughly as intended. If you truly comprehend this, take a moment to reflect upon it. This profound concept is encapsulated in the idea of not establishing words, suggesting that true understanding transcends mere linguistic expression. It prompts the fundamental question, how can one's own nature be originally complete? This inquiry delves into the inherent perfection and self-sufficiency of one's true self. What exactly does it mean when we ask, how can one's own nature be complete? This question, how, for example, painting landscapes, painting bamboo, these are all methods. In Buddhism, there are the 5 sciences and reputation has always existed. As I mentioned earlier, when esoteric Buddhism arose in the city around the 2nd century, there were 6 Avalokitesvaras, and in some cases 7. In the human realm, there is one more, making 7 Avalokitesvaras. It's a bit more complicated for people, so it takes 2 Avalokitesvaras to guide them, while it's easier to reach the heavens. For the others, it's just one. Later, I will tell you which one each represents. Is there a surprise with the white-robed Avalokitesvara? Well, this led to the development of the 33 forms of Avalokitesvara. How did the 33 Avalokitesvaras come about? According to their concept, it starts from the heavens. In fact, there are only 6 realms: heaven, earth, humans, asuras, animals, hell, hungry ghosts, and so on. 6 realms in total. That night, when they looked at it, they thought, only 6. That's too few, not enough at all. So they added 23 more heavens under Chakra Indra, making 29 heavens. These heavens, with 6 realms and desire realm heavens, are considered a higher level. Heavens are above others, referred to as sound hearers, arhats. 20 plus 23, what is this called? The formless realm heavens. But that's still not enough. There are even more powerful ones. Add a few more, the invisible glass heavens, and add 4 more heavens on top of that, called the heaven of neither perception nor non-perception, and so on. These are all on the same level of equality. That is to say, when your mind is focused, when you recite a scripture, it's like emerging from a desert and reaching a certain level, where you can look out and see the past and present. In the future, everything, absolutely everything, will be composed of microscopic tiny thoughts. You've truly reached that profound realm, seeing that all thoughts are fundamentally equal, much like a minuscule individual particle. Do you genuinely understand this concept? It exists precisely between the formed and the unformed states. The past, which was once formed, is now completely gone, and the present you, as you perceive yourself, has already departed. After seeing and comprehending this, the future you will ultimately see nothing but a mere pile of incredibly tiny particles. This is because what we typically think of in our material world is what scientists often describe. You used to watch cartoons without many of these modern things, right? For instance, how could there possibly be wireless phones back then? And now there are incredible things that can fly, that can soar high into the sky. The true authentic form is specifically called the sexual Avalokitesvara. After the 33 Avalokitesvaras were fully formed, there are also his sacred Dharma instruments, his distinctive hand seals, and his unique sitting posture. Generally speaking, how do you typically recognize a bodhisattva? They are all quite similar in their essence. Strictly speaking, bodhisattvas possess two distinct forms. One form is specifically called the form of saving all sentient beings, and the other is to preach the profound Dharma to the general public. I'll show you this in just a moment. Let me explain this concept first, as I'm afraid you might become confused. The Huidazong Dharma is essentially a public Dharma seat lecture. You have to wear a cassock formally and very solemnly and wear a crown. There are 2 stone belts. These are specifically called stone belts, and so on. There are 5 kinds of meat, and so on. There are not so many derivatives. This, and gasha are also divided. You generally say in Buddhism that the colors represent. What are the colors in Buddhism? They are blue, yellow, and red. All material colors are red, yellow, and blue. Just look at the logo of TVB, wireless television. That's it. To put it simply, red is actually a symbol of brightness. Why is brightness important? When sunlight comes, it is originally golden light. But because your eyes are clouded, if you don't use a mindset of cultivation to observe, if you only use your eyes to look, you are essentially blind. That's why we say, with a body, there is a soul. Without a body, there is no soul. It means that when you have wisdom and want to cultivate, you must rely on this false self. This is called borrowing the false to cultivate the real. For example, if you have a pile of rice, how much can you take? If you try to grab it all, it slips through your hands. No matter how much you try to hold, it just slips away, right? But now you have a physical body to contain you, so however much you can take in, that's how much you get. As long as your body is strong enough, that's all you need. The principle is the same. That's why it's called borrowing the false to cultivate the real. When your physical form decays and falls apart, your soul comes out. If your sustained mindfulness isn't strong enough, meaning your healing power isn't strong enough, to put it simply, you'll gradually be worn down by this intense light. You'll drift toward darkness, hiding in some corner, and slowly become... You'll just dissipate into nothingness, becoming a wandering ghost. That's why you must face life head on in this lifetime. Whatever you need to deal with, you must tell yourself, I can do it, I definitely can. You have to do it. All right, if you don't face life head on and do well in this lifetime, in the next life it will be too late. You'll just keep circling around in the same place, repeating everything over and over. So don't be afraid, you must face life directly. Every day, tell yourself, I can do it. You need to go about your day from getting up in the morning to going to bed at night. Eating, drinking, watching movies, having meals, just do it this way. Now, I'll pause here for the moment. Let's take a 2-minute break so I can have a glass of water, and then I'll continue to talk about soy sauce, how soy sauce is made, okay?